Hello, today we're going to be talking about how to prevent biting in preschool. My name is Trisha Demery. I work for HEB ISD. I am the Special Education and District Behavior Coordinator. Biting in the preschool setting is a tremendous challenge for everyone involved. Parents and caregivers must work together to be proactive and educate parents about possibilities of biting, doing this before a bite ever occurs, because once the bite has occurred, it downplays, the parents feel like it downplays what the event has happened. So educating those parents ahead of time on just the developmental levels of children, which we'll go over throughout this presentation, but just understanding how each of the different groups feel about biting is important, because toddlers and 2-year-olds are relentlessly curious about other people. But at this age, they have little concept of anyone else's needs and wants. They are truly self-centered. So that is just a part of their development. Their impulse control is very underdeveloped. So this is very common. It is important to understand the feelings of the parents that have children who are biting. Oftentimes they are very embarrassed by this. They feel like they don't know what to do. They want to help, they want to be proactive, but they are at their wits' end. So understanding their feelings is important. The parents of children who are being bit, when their child is bit, they are fearful. They're fearful to send their child to a place where they feel that they're going to be hurt, and they feel scared each day. They may even blame others or blame themselves for sending them there. So they have this response of, you need to take care of this, get rid of that child, whatever it takes. And of course, the caregivers, feel responsible and stumped by the chronic biting. Oftentimes, they don't really always know what to do or how to prevent it whenever it's a problem. And all of these viewpoints are very important, because we are in this because we love children and we love all children, and we believe that all children can learn and change. So we have to put things in place that can prevent that, and we're going to spend time on what those look like today. There are many reasons that children bite, and we're going to build on this later as we go. We're going to take each of these different skills or skill deficits, and we're going to talk more in depth on them. But communication is definitely one of the biggest ones, because all behavior is a form of communication. So finding out what they're trying to communicate is what our job is. So communication is one. Social skills deficits, just knowing that they don't know how to get their needs met. They don't know how to ask for help or to ask a friend to share or any of those things. So there's social skills deficits. They have unmet needs. Maybe they're hungry, maybe they're tired, maybe their teeth are hurting, maybe their stomach is hurting. So they are, on edge. So they're trying to, they bite out of an unmet need. Affection. Sometimes children bite because they care about another kid. They really like them, and so they'll use affectionate biting that just turns into something more harmful than they intended it to be. Hunger and sensory. We have a lot of kids that are very sensory seeking, and so using their mouth to explore their world is very common. So, and just figuring out what things feel like, taste like, is very common at this age. So now we're going to talk about responding to biting when it happens, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because this is very common in toddlers. So we want to really compare the two ways, the old ways we do things and then the new ways we want to shift, because there are some effective ways that we can deal with biting. So one, it is important to understand that when a bite occurs, it is very common for adults to have a very strong reaction to that bite, because it is alarming, and it should be. But oftentimes we resort to very unhelpful ways of responding. And so one of those things is excessive reaction. So that, sudden scare of the child, stop it, don't ever bite again. Why would you do that? You know how to behave, you know how to use your words, those kind of lecturing reactions. Reasoning with the child. This sounds like it would be, very helpful on the outside, but reasoning with a child who is not developmentally ready to have those things done, to, have those conversation is not very helpful. So, telling a child, how would you like it if someone bit you? Nobody's biting you. Why do you do that? That's not nice. Though perfectly reasonable adults, they seemingly logically construct a thought, means little to children. They just are not able to construct those thoughts themselves or understand them, even though they appear to buy into that rationale. It's not, for not hurting other children. That's exactly, they don't want to, but they haven't received any useful tools to help them do something different the next time they are under stress. So we want to think of any kind of aggression, whether it's biting or hitting or any of those things, as an opportunity to learn a new skill. And that's what we're going to try to focus on, is teaching the child what to do instead of biting. And so timeout is another commonly used one. Timeout can be very effective if used properly, but not not in young children. They don't see it as, it doesn't change their behavior. It doesn't shift their behavior. It actually sometimes will become a part of the ritual of the behavior. So they know that A equals B equals C. So it just becomes a part of that thing that happens when they bite. So they feel a stressor, a kid doesn't give them a toy that they want to play with. They bite that kid, then the caregiver takes them to timeout, and then they go back to play. I mean, it just becomes a part of that ritual and they don't learn anything different. Isolating children for a long period of time is not helpful either, because children have to practice the skills that we're trying to teach them. So separating them for significant amount of times is not going to help them grow or get better, and they need interaction with each other. So what we want to do is replace that with new, more effective ways to work with children who are biting. So this is called an instructive intervention. And this is the guide, and these are the steps. Interrupt the behavior, help the child who was bitten, reflect both children's feelings, define the problem, clarify the limit, provide solutions, and re-engage in play. So what this would look like: interrupt that behavior. So no biting. Sit down right here in this spot. We'll talk about it in a minute. So you're going to interrupt that biter right away, so that that you don't want to give them so much attention, because then you're focusing on the problem and not the student who has been bitten. Help the victim. I know that really hurt. Here, let me help you feel better. Make sure that attention is on that victim, because the biter needs to understand that they're not the one getting all the attention. Reflect both children's feelings. So I can see that you felt frustrated and angry to the biter. I see, you were hoping for the toy. You didn't know what to do. You didn't know what to say. So you took it, or you bit them, or whatever it is. And we do that a lot in conscious discipline. We use that language. You didn't know what to do. You didn't know what to say. Because oftentimes, even if they have the skill in a calm moment, they do not have that skill in a stressful moment. So don't mistake any behavior that they practice in a very calm setting as being able to be transferred into a stressful event. Reflect on the child that's been bitten. You felt scared, you felt sad, talk about their feelings. Define the problem. I see the problem. You both wanted to play with the same doll at the same time. That was the problem. So tell them what the problem is, even if you're wrong. This is that opportunity for the kid to tell you what the real problem is. You can make an educated guess on what the problem is. You were hoping that you were going to get to play with the doll first. And if they go, that's not what I wanted, they stepped on my toe, then you know what the real problem is, and then you can clarify that. Clarify the limit. We always touch people gently, even when we're upset or angry. If you hurt people, You'll have to stay next to me. I won't let you play with children when you hurt them, which is a very good limit. We do not hurt each other. We don't use physical aggression to hurt each other, but use the language that they can understand, that safety language. My job is to keep you safe. It's your job to help us keep each other safe. And right now you're not being safe. So I'm going to help you by keeping you close to me, and we will be safe during that time. Provide solutions. Give them opportunities to know what to do the next time. So next time you feel upset, you can take a big deep breath. You can clench your teeth and make a grrr sound. Breathe in and out through your front teeth. Squeeze your fist tightly. To the child to the other child, the child that's been bitten, absolutely empower them, to what to do. Tell them, I don't like that, move away from them. How many minutes until you're done, things like that. Make sure that they understand that they have power too. And then re-engage in play. So we want to make sure that now we get to have an opportunity to go back and practice those skills. Have the kids practice the new skill and then re-engage. Remember, you can always say help, and the toddler will come to you and I'm glad you're all done biting. Let's go now. So helping that toddler understand that they can go back and re-engage with their friends. So let's talk about the typical social emotional development of our students. So first of all is our 12 to 14-month-olds, because the difference between a 14-month-old and a 2-year-old is huge. Every month they just make leaps and bounds of growth. But that 12 to 14-month-old, they are very prone to get swept up in strong feelings and need help from adults to get back to a calm state. Toddlers, though, they find it difficult to comprehend and care what anyone else is experiencing, and they assume that everyone can see, hear, and feel exactly their experience. And they don't have that self-talk that they believe other people are thinking something different from themselves. They have not developed the ability to understand that objects are separate from themselves. So you hear a lot of, that's mine, even if it's not technically theirs. If they're playing with it, it's theirs, and it's almost like an extension of their body. They don't understand that whenever they share with another child, that they're going to be able to get it back eventually. It's a back and forth. That's a very immature process for them at this time. So it's very common for them to believe that once they surrender something, that they're never going to see it again. They're very egocentric. They have very immature empathy. They don't understand how other people are feeling, thinking, which we've been over that. But whenever you do cause and effect play, having lots of cause and effect play, having lots of opportunities to pretend, most kids, the research shows that pretend play builds empathy in children, helping them to have that cause and effect and play and explore and pretend. And the more they do that, the more they learn empathy. It's very common for them to explore their world through putting things in their mouth. I remember my children, my daughter put every single thing in her mouth, and we couldn't have anything on the floor, because as soon as she started walking, she was gonna find it and she was gonna put it in her mouth to explore that thing. So it is very common at this age for children to do that. They can engage in affectionate biting. This is very common at this age, that 12 to 14-month-old age, where they will bite friends that they really deeply care about and like. And it's not uncommon. My daughter's best friend bit her on the face one time. And it wasn't because she was mad at her. It was just because that's what she thought, that she was being kind and compassionate, but she wasn't. And it was very hurtful. But she didn't know any better, because it's very immature at that time, that they don't understand that if I do this, it's going to hurt. So let's look at our 2-year-olds. So 2-year-olds are very prone to love rituals, routines. They actually will become quite upset whenever those routines and rituals are changed without their knowledge. They appreciate very clear and understandable boundaries. Even if they push up against those boundaries make them feel secure and safe with adults. When they don't receive enough positive attention, they will seek negative attention through using hurtful behaviors. That's very common at this age. But they start to play differently than those 12 to 14-month-olds. They start to do more parallel play is common with this age group. They enjoy watching others play, but they're still very immature and sharing, waiting, and taking turns. But they do have a little bit more self-control. The closer to the 3-year-old age, between 2 and 3, that upper 2-year-old, they increase in self-control tremendously. 2-year-olds have a lot more sympathy and compassion towards others. So if a peer gets hurt, they will go to them and try to help them. But their true empathy is still very limited because it's a very sophisticated concept. Children at this age enjoy helping adults with lots of simple tasks. They want to be the one that sweeps. They want to be the one that wipes the tables. They want to do as much as they can to be helpful. So they're growing and exploring, and they're trying to figure out what they're able to do and what they are unable to do. So on to our 3-year-olds. 3-year-olds are generally more cooperative and provoke fewer power struggles. Now, all of these are, these lessons on the different age groups are very generalized because we know that there are always those extremes on each end, the very mature child to the very immature child. But at 3, our children are typically developing a more social emotional skills. Now, the thing you have to understand is some of those social emotional skills that they are developing are unhealthy social emotional skill development. So the things that they have learned are not things that we want them to continue with as they grow, because some of our kids, if they hear a lot of yelling in their life, they will yell. Whenever they see, tantrums from their parents or their siblings, they will develop those same skills. They use the skills that they've learned to handle stressful situations. Now, that doesn't mean they can't change them, because the older they get, the more rigid they become. But at 3, their brain is still very malleable. It can shift much easier at this young age to develop skills that are more appropriate. And they can learn that I may use these unhealthy skills at home or in other settings, but at school or at my preschool, it looks very different. So they can learn to use those skills in different settings. The skills that they learn in one can be different. So even though they understand the concept of sharing and taking turns, they're not always willing to, because sometimes they're just kind of like, I don't have to, and so I'm not going to. So that's also just a part of their development at this age. So now let's talk about how to help these toddlers at these, that are these 1, 2, and 3-year-olds. So providing children with plenty of cause and effect toys is very important. So when a child can make something happen, they're watching it do something different or change or shift. So good choices for toys may be things that flap or dials or things that light up, things that have knobs. Capitalize on that young child's natural interest in cause and effect. Use the when-then statements. We use this is called the Premack principle, and it is a simple tool that we use to say, if you do this, then this is going to happen. So when you put on your jacket, then we can go outside and play. It's a natural cause and effect that we use all the time. If I go put gas in my car, then I will be able to drive farther. So it's just that cause and effect that children don't always have the maturity to grasp, that if I don't do this, this is not going to happen. So you're putting words into their head to help them understand that their actions have reactions. And so helping them to mature that. Recognize that children's needs to put things in their mouth. So having teething toys, having things that they can put in their mouth that are safe, that belongs to them and only them, but they know that that's theirs. In schools, we use chew toys, chew necklaces. They're like pinned to their clothes, or it's a necklace around their neck, or whatever. They use these to help soothe that need to put things in their mouth. Use cold, damp washcloth. You can put that in the freezer or in the fridge, and then the child can bite on that washcloth as a replacement behavior, because oftentimes before you can stop a behavior, you have to replace it with something more appropriate. So we want to go from not biting to nothing, but sometimes for some children, and that might work for some children, they may go from biting and never biting again, or you have a child that needs steps in between. So that would be this child that needs a teething tool, something, and when I get mad or I need something in my mouth, it prevents them from using their mouth to hurt other people. So it's that interrupter. Give clear choices. So making sure that you are giving your toddlers clear choices on what your expectations are or what they can have, because clear choices give us all an opportunity to have some kind of control in our lives. So toddlers need that control as well, but it needs to be controlled with parameters. Never give a choice that you're not willing for them to actually have. So you can sit in the blue chair, or you can sit in the red chair. You can sit on the floor, or you can sit in the chair. You can sit with a friend, or you can sit by yourself. Giving only choices within the boundaries that you have created in your classroom. Promote empathy and turn taking. So oftentimes it is so important for us to use, we're so practiced at our skills because we have been doing it for a lot longer. So having think alouds is really important, and I'll go over this again later because it's really, really important for us to think out loud with our students to help them grow those dendrites and the ability to use those skills. So, saying things like, I see a little baby crying in that stroller over there. He looks sad. Do you think he might be hungry? Do you think he's thirsty? Do you think he needs his diaper changed? I mean, you're using that thinking process out loud, and it helps that child to develop that ability to go, they're sad. I wonder why they're sad. Maybe they have an unmet need. And that is a really amazing gift that you can give children by thinking aloud with them. Practice, opportunities to take turns. It's my turn and then it's your turn. Can I have a turn now? And showing them how to ask politely and demonstrating that and modeling that. Giving them opportunities to use like a lovey or a soft personal item for comfort when they're upset, that they know this is what I use. If you have a safe space in your classroom, this is where I go. A safe space, if you do that, a safe space is never like a timeout. A safe space is a place where I go to work through my upset. It is not a place you can encourage them to go, but it is not a forced choice. It is not you can do that or you don't get to play. It is something that is a teaching skill. It is different from timeout. So please don't ever use a safe space as a timeout. Be reasonable and consistent. And so let me give you an example of a non-reasonable choice, because one time I had a teacher that the kid was pretty aggressive, and he was a second grader, he was a first grader, and every day he'd come in and he would literally tear the room up going into class. He was so distraught and fearful of school, and he used very aggressive behaviors to protect himself. These were unhealthy skills, but that was the only skills he had. And one day he was under the desk, and the teacher, out of frustration, legitimate frustration, she told him, she said, if you don't get out, you're acting like a baby. If you don't get out from under that table, you can go back to kindergarten. He thought kindergarten was a great idea, so he got out from under that table, walked out that door, walked back to his kindergarten class that he had the year before, because that wasn't a reasonable limit that she could set with him because she really didn't have the power to send him back to kindergarten. But she was frustrated, and so sometimes we do these things, and if we do, you can rein it back in, but think through those processes before you say something. Be reasonable. It has to be achievable, attainable, something that a toddler could understand. And be consistent. If you do say, hey, if you get your jacket on, we're going outside, then make sure you get to go outside. Don't set up the limit and set up the expectation and then not follow through. Practice think alouds to demonstrate that others think that they are thinking differently than them. Say, their face, describe their face looks sad. They must miss their mom or something, giving that child opportunities to think about how others are feeling. That child looks happy. They must have, slept really well last night. Anything like that helps the children to really start to understand that feelings are driven by other events in their lives because we are interconnected and we do affect each other generally. So this might be one of the most challenging pieces of this training because as caregivers of toddlers and young children, setting up that relationship with the parents is the most important thing that we can do to make sure that we get the information, honest information about what's going on in the lives of children who are so stressed and in stressful situations, whether it's a legit stress or something that they have created. And what I mean by that is that sometimes things that generally children just overlook and let go of can become something very simple. So for example, a headache. A child can have a headache, and most of the time they'll just kind of cry and say, I have a headache, and you can console them and comfort them and things like that. Whereas some children who get a headache, they become very aggressive and unconsolable. You cannot make them happy. You cannot make them feel better by any stretch because of another stressor that's in their life. So having honest and open discussion with families about their child's experiences at home is really important, but it's really hard if you haven't really had the time to develop that relationship with that family, making sure that they feel safe with you, they feel like they're not going to be judged by you, they feel like that you are a family member at an extension, at that child. Because anytime my child was in with other people beyond our family, I felt like they were family, and I treated them like family because I wanted them to love my child like a family member. So making sure you have that really strong relationship with them, and then they will disclose information that may be embarrassing, may be stressful, may be hard, so that you can get to the bottom of why children are biting, why children are aggressive. So some possible stressors, there's tons of possible stressors, but some that are very common. Divorce, parents divorcing. Maybe they have a family member, a mom or a dad, that are deployed or in the hospital. Maybe they just had a new sibling, a baby just came in their life. Maybe they've had to move. Maybe they had a fire. Maybe they had an eviction. Or maybe they built a new house, unemployment or a change in employment. Dad was a stay-at-home dad worked from home, and now he has to go to the office. Death of a family pet. Holidays, special occasions can be stressful. Different people in their house or going to different places, traveling can be very stressful. I mean, any of those things, and it can be something as simple as, I have a favorite shirt and I always want to have that favorite shirt or my favorite jacket or my favorite anything, and then that favorite thing gets lost. My son, whenever he was 18 months old, he had a blanket that he carried everywhere, and that blanket got left in a hotel room while we were on vacation, and the sadness for the next week was unbearable. So it can be anything that seems very simple to us, but to them it is a very huge event. So understanding that those stressors have definitely a reaction, that child can have a reaction to those stressors, as we do as well. So helping a child with stress and those stressors that we just talked about is really important. And the relationship that you have with those children, which I know you do because you love them so much, you work really hard to have a really good relationship with the child, but just making sure that they get just a little bit extra, because making sure that you give the child forewarning of any changes. That's great for kids with autism or ADHD, but it's really great for a child that stressors in their lives are happening. So just letting them know, okay, we're going to have lunch early today, or we're going to all go to the bathroom in the next 2 minutes. And I know that's earlier than normal, but we have to shift our schedule a little bit today. So giving them any warning of any changes to their schedule or routines is very helpful. The big thing at school is whenever it's too cold to go outside or rainy for recess. I mean, that just makes kids bonkers. But letting them know ahead of time usually eases that. Letting them know early in the morning, hey, you know what, today it's raining outside, we're going to have indoor recess. I know it's not as fun as outdoor recess, but just letting them know what their choices are. You can sit with me, sit near me, or you can sit by yourself, or whatever. Connect with that safe language. I used it a little bit earlier, but my job is to keep you safe. It's your job to help us keep you safe and keep others safe. So remembering that safe language, I use safe language all the time, because it takes the emphasis off of me and puts it on my job is safety for everyone, not just you, but everyone. And so there's an obligation with that, and children respond to that safe language. Provide outlets for intense feelings. So give them, places to go, things to play with, Play-Doh, paint or big brushes, things that they can use to get energy out. We use heavy stuff, like we'll have boxes of books, and whenever a child is really upset or really has some intense feelings that we might be able to prevent by catching it early, we'll have them deliver that heavy load to another teacher, and we have this understanding that they're going to go next door with this big crate of books that are really heavy, and they're going to go carry it to them, and it's heavy work. And whenever you use big muscles, it releases cortisol, like it gets it out of your body. Cortisol is a bad chemical. It's a chemical that is released whenever you're stressed out or fearful or in danger. And a lot of times kids who are biters or hitters or any of those things have a high level of cortisol. So giving them heavy work gives them an opportunity for that to be released out of their body more quickly. So doing things like that, doing wall push-ups, running, any of those heavy activities, big muscle activities are helpful to release that. Provide, carve out time to just spend time with that kid privately, not alone, but, just separate from the other kids. And, we do what's called a 2 and 10, where for 2 minutes a day, and it's a long time whenever you're sitting there listening to someone talk about just whatever their interest is, but 2 minutes, let them talk or do whatever they want with you. Just sit with them and play for 2 minutes on their favorite thing, just listening to them, and then do that for 10 consecutive days. And it really helps children to connect with you and feel connected to you. Active listening, just anything they're talking about, just listen to them. If they have any worries or anything like that, just help them to feel comforted that you are listening to the things that are going on in their lives. So, is the lack of verbal skills causing frustration that may be leading to biting? We always have to consider this. So, while children have an inborn capacity for language acquisition, learning to use language does not occur on its own. It's not something that just is naturally innate. So the younger you are, you can learn far more languages if you're introduced to those languages, because your brain is so malleable and it will really adapt to the different sounds and such. But so acquisition is very common, but the use is not. So they learn to communicate through interactions with humans, with us, with adults and other children. That's how they learn to communicate. 12 to 8-month-olds should string together 2-syllable words. So it's very common for them to have 2-syllable words between 12 and 18 months. Now, again, these are generalizations. I'm sure you have some 12-month-olds that can probably use sentences, and then others that say nothing. So this is just an average. 18-month-olds should say 20 to 30 words. 2-year-olds should have up to 300 words, and 3-year-olds should have 600 to 1,000 words. Okay, so how do we help with communication? If a child's communication is something that we believe could be causing stressful interactions with kids that may lead to biting or other aggression, so here are some things that we can do to help them. So provide words. So when you see a child struggling with communication, provide the words that you believe that they're trying to communicate. Say that to them, and then they can use that and follow your directive so that they can get their needs met. Use short phrases. Be a commentator. So literally, this is what it sounds like. I mean, if you've ever watched football games and they're describing what you just saw happen, but they're elaborating on it because they're an expert. And you may go, oh, I didn't realize that because they did, I didn't understand that was what just happened. Be that commentator for that child. Be that expert in communicating. I see that. Use phrases like, I see that, I see that Brianna is building a tall tower with all the red blocks right now. I see John and Pablo taking turns using the big shovel. Nice digging, boys. Just using those, that commentator narration to help that child to develop that language in their own words, because they're learning from you. They're literally learning how to talk from you and other kids in their classroom. Describe your own actions. Describe what you're doing. I'm picking up the papers, I'm handing out the glue, I'm cutting, using those words and all of your actions out loud. That out loud thinking is really important for children to learn how to think and how to use internal language. Use starter phrases. So something like, I have an idea, and things like that to help them, start those conversations. Let's take the writing toys over to the floor where there's more room. Having those, start and then help them to expand on that. Say things like, I wonder, model thoughtfulness. I wonder on a regular basis demonstrates that they're, your skill of, I'm not sure what's happening, or I'm not sure what somebody's thinking, but I wonder if this is correct. And so you can say something like, I wonder if Marco's almost ready to eat. Wonder if we're ready to play games. I wonder. And then it helps them to know that you don't know what every single one of them is thinking. You're probably wrong because you can't hear what they're thinking in their heads, but it helps them to understand that. Be extremely patient, because we do have kids, especially kids are developing at different ages, and speech and language development issues, developmental delays are some of the hardest, because oftentimes their brain is perfectly fine. Their brain is very smart and they know what they want, but whenever they cannot say it in a clear enough way to help you understand, it can be very hard for them and become very frustrating. For example, I had a little boy just this past week. It was raining on Monday. He brought an umbrella to school and he was so excited that he had an umbrella, and he was trying to tell me the word umbrella. And he's a very smart kid, but his speech and language is very, very challenging to understand. And so I could not understand umbrella. And so he just looked at me, he goes, let me show you. So he took me to his locker and he pointed to the umbrella, and I was like, oh, umbrella. And he said it again, exactly the way he said it the 15 times prior, but I still didn't understand umbrella when he said it. So children are, that can be very frustrating for them. So being patient with them and letting them show you. I say that all the time, just show me, point to it, show me, because then they feel like they're really being listened to. Reading to children. Research shows that just reading books to children helps develop their language. It helps to develop their own reading skills. You being a model reader helps children learn how to read. You cannot underestimate the power of that in preparing them to be good readers whenever they get to 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, when they're reading on their own and reading to learn. So read all the time. So don't underestimate the child's physical condition as a contributing factor to biting. So some of those physical conditions that lead to irritability, which may lead to aggression or biting, ear infections. If you've had an ear infection, you know how miserable that is. So ear infection and teething are horrible, and they often lead to they lead to fevers, they lead to just aches and pains. And so I get irritable if I have ear infection or toothache. So definitely, toddlers who don't have the ability or the stamina, the emotional stamina to withstand that pain is going to be far more likely to be aggressive. Hunger, being hungry, whenever they are expecting to eat at a certain time, that can make them cranky. If they're thirsty, if their sleep is interrupted at night, say maybe, I've had kids who the parents got off work at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and they only had one car. So mom or dad had to wake the children up, to put them in the car to go get dad from work because they couldn't leave them at home by themselves. So is their sleep interrupted? Or maybe their sleep is interrupted because they have an ear infection or a teething or hunger or thirst or whatever. So just knowing that could be a problem. I know I'm pretty cranky whenever I'm tired. Motor problems, maybe they don't have the physical ability yet to coordinate their movements, and they're, especially vulnerable during play. They oftentimes are far more likely to, fall or get hurt or get cuts and scrapes and, things like that. So, different kids develop motor skills at different ages, but just recognizing those motor problems can be a cause as well. So some of the ways to help with physical conditions, this is probably the one that you're constantly navigating at preschool. Creating the necessary changes to the daily schedule to support the child's needs. So recognizing when they're going to be the most tired, recognizing when they're the most hungry. You might have a schedule that's very consistent, that everybody eats at 11:30, or everybody takes a nap across the whole, school at, 1 or 12 or whatever. Your schedule may be very, very set, but you might have to adjust for some kids just to catch it early. When if you are collecting data on when behaviors occur, oftentimes if there is any pattern, you will recognize that pattern right away, and you can make adjustments to your schedule for that child so that you can catch the need early, so that you won't have to end up in a biting situation or aggression. Structure the day so as to avoid unnecessary overstimulation during the hours the children become most tired, because if they're in an overstimulating environment when they are the most fatigued, that is the time that they are going to have a more likely incident of being stressed to the point where they don't know how to make a good decision on their response. So trying to avoid those situations and catching those, recognizing early if they're teething, recognizing early if their ear is hurting and things like that. Because sometimes parents are, we're busy, we're trying to get to work, we don't recognize it. The child, maybe they're even super tired, and we send them to daycare, preschool and they're fine, but then, within an hour really getting awake, we start recognizing, something's wrong. So making sure that you're being cognizant and sensitive to those needs. The physical environment of your preschool can make or break the situations with physical aggression and biting for your children. So crowded conditions can create a feeling, that creates tension and stress with your child, with the children in your school. Inadequate play spaces can result in fighting over preferred items. So if there's one item that everybody wants to play with, that can create situations where they're very stressed out and act out more frequently. Now, if you have the supervision, you can actually create opportunities for children to practice skills, but it has to be very intentional. Don't do this. Don't have preferred items, like one preferred item that every single kid wants, without the supervision of, we're going to practice the skill of taking turns with supervision. Because if you're not supervising during that time where there's one tricycle and everybody wants to play on the tricycle, and there's only one, then we know that somebody's going to end up getting hit, bit, kicked. One of those things are going to happen because there's only one. So you have to supervise very closely whenever you're in that situation. But the best thing to do is to avoid having one preferred item or a few preferred items. Make sure you have enough for the majority of the kids so that there's turn taking place, but it's not so stressful that the kid feels like they're never going to have a turn. Novelty. Recognize when children are ready for something new to continue to explore and grow in their environment. Structure and routine is very important with younger children. Don't change your structure and routine, but create novelty within your structure and routine. Making sure you're putting different kinds of toys out. Pull toys away and put them away, and then bring new toys out to explore and play with, because that way the child will never stop growing. Children grow weary and bored with toys much quicker than we recognize, because once they've explored it and they understand it, they're like, okay, I'm good with that one. Let me move on to the next thing. And it's not because the toys aren't fun or great. It's just that they're learning, and they're learning at such a fast pace that they are wanting to explore the next thing quickly. Offer toys that can be put together, taken apart, open. They require cooperative play or help to manipulate, because then you're teaching a lot of different skills. You're teaching them those opportunities to ask for help. You're teaching them those physical, challenges, and helping them to cooperate with each other whenever they're playing as well. And offer age-appropriate items, making sure that, your 3-year-olds are not playing with, toddler-like toys specifically. It may be, you might have a 3-year-old that prefers something that's very toddler-like, and that's okay for them to have, but making sure that, as a majority rule, that all of your toys are age-appropriate, and that you don't have things that are too advanced, because if you have some kids that need those advanced items, absolutely provide them. But for some of your kids, it's just going to be very frustrating, because they won't understand, if you have something that's too advanced for them. So let's talk about limit setting with our young ones. So, young children have much to learn about the world. However, they are at a distinct disadvantage because they don't know their boundaries yet. They don't know where they end and you begin, and vice versa. So they're trying to figure that out. But boundaries, when we establish boundaries with children, it is so that we can provide safety and security for them. We create the perimeter by which they are going to live, so that, because beyond this perimeter, we're not able to protect them. So within that, we allow a lot of choices and a lot of opportunities for them to explore their environment under the safe control of our boundaries. Typically, children of any age will test boundaries. This is kind of just our natural, even adults do this. This is our natural inclination, is to test the boundaries that we've been given. But it's really to figure out, where those boundaries end and begin, and to test our own control. Pushing boundaries is basically, to see, will the authority yield, and under what condition will they yield. And holding that boundary is you are a safe adult when you hold the boundary. Sometimes we have people that are very, they think, oh, this is mean to have these boundaries. They're very permissive. And then that child actually becomes very stressed out because the boundaries change from day to day. For example, boundaries can also be expectations. I had a teacher at one point, she was a kindergarten teacher, and the rule in kindergarten is you raise your hand, because Lord knows if every kid is talking without permission or at the same time, nothing gets done and nobody learns. So it's just crowd control at that point. So raise your hand when you have a question or a comment. And one day, the teacher's requiring them to raise the hand, and the next day, she just lets them popcorn out, conversation. And then the next day, she starts making them raise their hand again. And then the kids are confused because they're just like, why am I in trouble? Because yesterday you let us not have to raise our hand. So it becomes very confusing, and then they don't feel safe with the adults because the rules are changing, and they need to know what the rule is, and then everybody stick to the rule. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're trying to teach them self-control. That is ultimately the goal, is to help them to learn self-control, and what to do, not just what not to do. So it's really about, the proactive versus, just trying to avoid, the bad things. It's also about learning the good things. Teach the children to understand how others think, feel, and make decisions. I know I've gone over that a lot, but that is really, really so important. Just having those constant conversation about that people think differently than you, they feel differently than you, they make different decisions than you, because children are very egocentric, and they will always believe that everybody does the same thing as them. Okay, let's talk about what to avoid when responding to biting. So we want to avoid shame and guilt. Some people try to explain to children that they should change their negative behaviors to, for the express purposes of being nice to others. Well, honestly, most of the time, children, that's exactly what they're not trying to be, is nice. So that doesn't serve a function to them. It doesn't teach them a new skill. Sometimes they they may be feeling bored, crowded, threatened, hungry, or tired. So just saying, don't bite because it's not nice is just simply a waste of your breath. Forcing an apology. This is probably one of the most controversial things that I teach, because it is almost standard operating procedures with any kind of aggression, hurtfulness, hurtful words, physical, any of those things. It's just say you're sorry. And there is some, I don't want to say that that it's a bad thing. It's just forcing an apology is often not meaningful, because if you tell a child, say sorry, and they just think, okay, there's closure. I have closure. I said I was sorry, and now it's over. But that doesn't fix the problem. And sometimes they'll just go back to the physical aggression and just immediately go, I'm sorry, and think that it's over, that's the closure, and that's all I've got to do. But they have no remorse or feeling that, or penitence, or feeling better that they should do something different. So they haven't learned any skills by just saying sorry. Now, when there is true remorsefulness and true sadness, helping them to work through the apology is very meaningful. But in the moment, forcing it is not helpful. It's not really helpful for the kid that got bit, and it's not helpful for the child who was the biter. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Oftentimes, when we are the teacher of a child who is a biter, it can be very frustrating, and sometimes we need to, get it off our chest and talk to our friends or talk to another teacher, why, and share something, little Johnny, he's always biting. It's so frustrating. I don't know what to do. We may be seeking advice, but if it's an earshot of that child, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy that they will do it again and again and again. So try to avoid having those conversations where that child may overhear you talking about it. If you must communicate something with somebody, make sure that it is in a very private place that no one else will overhear that. Meaningless praise is not helpful either. So praise and encouragement are valuable commodities in young children. You can get children to do amazing things by making sure they understand that they're doing a good job when they're doing a good job. But whenever it becomes something that you feel like you are trying to look for every single thing that they're doing well to praise, then it becomes diluted and they don't really believe it, or it's not that meaningful anymore because they get praised for every single little thing. So the way that we do praise and conscious discipline is we look at how is what the child is doing good for the for the greater good. How does that benefit the greater good? So, for example, a child, we're getting up to put our jackets on to go out to recess, and the children push in their chair, and and that is, it would look something like this, Johnny, you did a great job, pushing in your chair. Now everybody can walk out safely without tripping on the chair. Way to go. That was super helpful. It's recognizing how their act is bigger than themselves. So, cleaning up your mess, afterwards helps us all to get to our next activity quickly. Having a quiet voice during nap time helps everybody get to sleep better. Just every single act there is something that helps everybody, even if it seems like it's just that kid. When a kid completes their work in a timely manner, it benefits everybody because everybody gets to move on to the next learning activity. So there you can find the greater good in every single thing, but it helps them to feel that their acts are bigger than just themselves. And it's not a competition with someone else to get the praise because I'm the only one that did that perfectly. It's something that everybody gets to benefit from when I do something well. So responses to biting. Keep those discipline ideas simple, phrases simple. So distill limit setting to one main message. For example, all of your techniques will lead to the following concept. So saying to that child, even when we feel upset, we show it without hurting other people, ourselves, or things. So making sure that it's a very simple communication. You don't have to go to the elaborate, you need to stop, anything, what are you thinking? Why don't you use your words? Those kinds of things. It is more, you can say, stop, come, sit. Very distinct, very, insert very fast because they can do the things. It's the language of saying what you want them to do versus what you don't want them to do is much more effective. Stop hitting, stop biting, stop running can be shifted into safe hands, safe body, walking feet, things like that, what you want them to do. Insert yourself strategically. Become skilled at looking at the world through the eyes of a child to see where moments can cause distress. Catching it early. Say, example, look over there. I see another sand cup for your cooking play. So making sure that you are already recognizing when they're starting to get upset because they can't find something that they need, when they can't have access to something that they want, that you're already inserting yourself into how do I deal with that stress? How do I deal with that tension? Because we're not going to just say, okay, let's give this to Johnny because they're upset. are going to get upset. We are going to have to redirect them. Be attentive. Making sure that you're just paying attention to their actions and provide plenty of opportunity for authentic praise and responses so that they know when they're doing something well. Whenever they did it, when it was hard, you did it. You were hoping that you were going to get to play with the doll, and Mary took it first, but you are waiting so patiently. Way to go. That's super helpful. Take a breath and stay focused, making sure that you're staying in your prefrontal cortex, because you can't help a child that is upset when you are upset. Because if both of you are upset, you're both going to be upset for a while. So you have to take that deep breath and access your brilliance and all the things that you know, and be able to help that child move forward. Teach compassion. Again, that language constantly coming out of your mouth, what you're thinking. I know that you were upset and angry that Nicholas took the ball, but you can't let that hurt. You can't hurt him. Look for every opportunity to teach compassion. Utilize books, puppets, dolls, television shows. At the end of this, I have a whole list of books, of social skills books to read based on biting and helping them to work through their feelings. Teach perspective, talking, why did the boy feel sad? What do you think he'll do next? Just asking those questions out loud for them to think about. Just teaching them that other person's perspective. So way to go, guys. We're almost finished. Books for social skills instruction that you can access. So here's a list. This entire training that I did was based on the last book. It's not a social skills book, but it is a book that I use. It's called The Biting Solution. There's so much more in it. I just gave you basically the Cliff Notes version of the book, but you can go back, buy that book, and it's very cheap on Amazon, and it will give you even more detailed things to look at and to access on how to prevent biting and working with students that are biters or aggressive, because these things are benefit even kids who are physically aggressive, like hitting and stuff. So definitely go buy that book if you want to get a more detailed instruction on that. So thank you so much for the opportunity to teach you guys today a little bit. I hope that this information is helpful. Here is my contact if you feel like you want to email me asking me more questions, or you have scenarios that you'd like to talk about. But don't hesitate, we're here to help, and I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your conference.